Hello and welcome to another talk at the CARE Conference 2021. With me is Vicky Bond, who is going to talk about the white striping disease in supermarket chicken. Hello, Vicky.
Hello, hi Anna. Hi everyone, lovely to be here.
Vicky is the Managing Director at the Humane League UK, an organization working to end the abuse of animals raised for food. Vicky graduated as a veterinarian and holds a master's in environment development and policy. Through her work, she has persuaded producers on farms and major companies to eradicate the worst forms of farm animal cruelty. She currently leads the Humane League UK in getting big businesses to commit to welfare policies and work closely with Open Wing Alliance, a coalition of global organizations fighting to end abuse of chickens worldwide. We will now move on to the recording of the talk.
Hi everyone, I'm Vicky Bond. I'm the Managing Director at the Humane League in the UK, and it's really great to be part of CARE 2021 this year. Sad not to be in person, hopefully next year, but really looking forward to all the talks and catching up with people. And today I will be talking about white striping disease in supermarket chicken. But quickly, for those that don't know about the Humane League, we're an animal protection organisation based in the UK, the US, Japan and Mexico. And we exist to end the abuse of animals raised for food. We've been working in the UK now for 5 years, getting corporate commitments from leading food businesses to end the use of cages for hens, improve the welfare of chickens raised for meat, and pushing for improved legislation of fish at the time of slaughter. But today I'm going to be telling you about white striping, what it is, and how we can utilise highlighting it as part of a push for improving the welfare of chickens raised for meat, or broilers, as they're known by the industry. Since 2018, groups in Europe have been working to get companies committed to the European chicken commitment, and this includes the improvement of breed, which is a major contributing factor to the suffering that chickens exhibit and experience in factory farms. And there's a number of other criteria that you can see here, like stocking density, enrichment, auditing, control of atmospheric stunning, but really that breed is crucial in making a change for chickens. That's because fast-growing breeds are currently used because they've been genetically selected for the speed and growth and the size of the birds. And it's that has led to some serious and sometimes fatal diseases that cause intense suffering in their very short lives. Chickens now achieve a 400% increase in growth rate once they get to a market weight in 60% less time than 50 years ago. With breast meat being so popular, birds have been selectively bred for bigger breast muscle, which has now increased by 2/3 compared to a traditional chicken. And alongside painful leg conditions and sudden heart attacks, to name but a few things that these poor birds may suffer in their short time, there is also something called white striping. Now, while white striping doesn't appear, as far as we know for now anyway, to cause pain to chickens, it's a really great visual representation of a consequence of fast growth, and it impacts meat quality, which means consumers have this vested interest in a way that when we're talking about birds suffering from heart attacks or suffering from poor leg conditions, it just doesn't resonate in the same way. But when you start talking to consumers about something that might cause them to feel disgust, like white striping, like the fact that it's not what it should be, then they start to pay a bit more attention. Now, white stripes show up because the chicken's body can't keep up with the unnaturally fast muscle growth. These chickens have so much muscle that they have trouble getting blood supply to all of it. So their muscles become inflamed and die, and that's because it's a consequence of lack of oxygen. Their bodies replace this muscle tissue with fibrous tissue and fat. And the severity of the white striping varies from mild to moderate to severe. And you can score it. There is an official score, which you can see here, 0 being there is no white striping, 1 being mild, 2 being moderate, and 3 being severe. And scientific studies have shown that 50 to 96% of fast-growing chickens will have some form of white striping on their chicken breast. As I mentioned, the nutritional value of the chicken meat reduces with white striping. What happens is that it gets a higher intramuscular fat content because of this switch from a muscle cell to a fat cell, and an increase in collagen to total protein ratio. Studies have found that 224% fat content increase and 10% collagen increase, a 9% protein decrease compared to normal breasts when you compare like a severely affected white striping breast to a normal one. That's quite incredible. And the increase in collagen levels mean that the protein in the chicken is less digestible. There's a deficiency in some essential amino acids, and the fat calories are also impacted, increasing from 7% to 21%. And because white striping is so noticeable, we decided to conduct investigations to assess just how prevalent it is in chicken breasts on supermarket shelves. Now, before undertaking this work, I recommend you do go and check your supermarkets, make sure breast muscle's on sale and that in fact you can see white striping. So we did basically a little recce just to make sure if we go in store, are we actually going to see white striping? And when I did that, I was like, oh, nearly every packet had white striping. So yeah, we're good to go. We did this work with our volunteers. We wanted to kind of get a spread across the country of different supermarkets to gather data, and there was a lot of data to gather. So our amazing volunteers took up the challenge of going into their local supermarkets and taking photos of the breast muscle and attempting to score it. And I'm going to give you a quick overview of what we did and the results you're likely to see. So when you're trying to get photos, we decided to try and get data from 7 different supermarkets spread across the country. We wanted to really compare all the supermarkets that didn't have a better chicken commitment, or European chicken commitment, as it's called in Europe. We also wanted to show that it wasn't as prevalent in slow-growing breeds. So we also wanted to have a comparison to the organic or free range. And we also have something called RSPCA Assured here, which is a higher welfare certification. If you don't have higher welfare chicken on sale, it's not essential by any means, but it does help in showing like the difference between these fast growth birds and then if you have like intermediate or slower growing birds. But it doesn't matter. The US have just conducted this study. They didn't have any higher welfare in store. And so they went with the kind of angle of no consumer choice, which they were able to do as the supermarkets had little or no higher welfare. And in the end, the stats on white striping will speak for themselves, so you don't have to worry too much. So we work with the volunteers and also our staff members. We created instructions. I have those, so if you reach out to me if you want them, if it's helpful. Those instructions kind of tell people what, how to take the photo and what they're looking for, and that's really important. You don't want people picking up the packet and like that. You need to be able to score the packs. So you really do need good quality photos, and ideally the cling film needs to be pressed up against the breast muscle because then you get really good visibility on the white stripes. So a few tips that we've had along the way. In the US, they said that just make sure people know what breast muscle is, because vegans often don't realize the difference between a breast muscle or a thigh, for instance. And it can, to be fair, be quite difficult to tell the difference. So they may need to look on the packs for the actual wording to make sure that they are sure that it's breast muscle and not another part of the chicken, because it is only the breast muscles that have white striping. And you may also want to track the farms to work out what producers are doing this, or certainly what slaughterhouses these chickens are coming through, and then you can maybe find out the producers. This works in a country like the UK, where we have a really condensed market with like really only 5 major producers. If you've got a very large market, then it's probably not worth doing. But it can help, and if you're having conversations with producers, then that can be helpful too, but again, not essential. But if you are going to do it, then you want to make sure that you have the label in the photos, obviously. Also, frozen. We did Iceland, but half of Iceland's chickens we could barely score because the frozen packs have the condensation in, or you can get condensation in packs in the refrigerator as well, but it's particularly bad in the freezer, so it can be very difficult to see the stripes. So you really want to try and ensure it's fresh chicken. Also, when collecting the photos, get the person that took the photos to file them appropriately, naming them and giving them a really easy to manage numbering system. That way you can ensure when you're logging your results, you can put them easily into a spreadsheet and you'll have that evidence should you need to back up your case. Or if you know, when you go to a journalist, they want to see the raw data, you have that to hand, it's really clear. And if someone was to say, I want to see that original photo, you can find it very easily. We actually tried it with asking the volunteers to score it themselves at the time, and then I was going to double check it. That led to a wide variation in scoring because there will be variation. You know, everyone is different, and some people found it easier than others. And actually, on reflection, like it was, you know, hard enough to take a photo of the packs, you know, when people are trying to shop and things. So it was even more stressful getting them to score at the same time. Do not recommend that. Get the photos, get them to upload them, and then you have your scorers. And just make sure you've got the best possible photos. And then you want 2 scorers ideally. What is best to do is to do a test run first. So get them to assess like 10 chicken breasts, and then compare their scores. And then that can really help make sure you're aligned on the scoring. In terms of how long does it take to score, I reckon, and I recommended to the US, like 30 seconds per photo, that they thought that was probably about right. But what you need to bear in mind is if you have over 1,000 photos, or in the US they had nearly 2,000 photos, it's a lot of time. It takes a lot of time. And also you can get fatigued when you're assessing it and you kind of like, what score is this? What score is this? So you need to have breaks as well. So just be prepared that in fact, it can take quite a long time to do the scoring. I also would say that it's important to score down, not up, if you're not sure. You want to be able to stand by your results, so erring on the side of caution is best. The results will be strong regardless. We erred on the side of caution and we found 85% of chicken packages had white striping, and in the US they found 99% affected. It's worth saying this is packets, because packets have different numbers of chicken breasts in, and the consumer can't choose between one chicken breast or the other. So it matters about the packet and not like the number of chicken breasts affected in the packet. And when you score for the highest white striping in that pack. So if there's one that's got 1 and one that's got 3, you would say it's a 3, not a 1. Yeah. So we put together a design report to present our results. In that, we had an introduction, just explaining what white striping is, why it's a problem. We put in the methodology, so being very clear about what we did. We actually did part of it pre-COVID, part of it sort of after lockdown of COVID, so we need to make sure that was clear, and explain how we did it safely when we were doing this and COVID was present. And then we put together these score sheets, so easy to see, easy to read comparatives for the different supermarkets, and we also split them out. But you can see here, you know, there's a lot of 3s present with some supermarkets. All supermarkets have white striping affected. Many of them have, you know, a high percentage that are affected by white striping. And we didn't have the same number of chicken packages per supermarket. You just want to have a high volume. So in the end, it just matters that you have lots and that you're very transparent with your results. So you don't have to, you know, when I started, I was like, I want 300 from this supermarket, 300 from this supermarket. It just wasn't possible because you have to go in and do whatever's on the shelves. So if there's only 20 packs on the shelves, it's 20 packs for that supermarket. And then there's 40 packs in the next supermarket, you're just not going to have the same numbers. And then we highlighted what the scoring was so people could see in the report, what does that look like? And I asked Hannah, who is our head of communications, how she went about with the media on this and if she had any recommendations. So she said it's really important to get good photos and footage of the chicken packages so that you can use it, and so you can use it in your press release. So it's really obvious, and you want to make sure you have a range, you know, ideally a range of brands so they can name and shame a number of different companies. She said, don't get hung up on the specific release date, work with the journalist to find the best possible outcome. We went with an exclusive with a national newspaper, and then we were able to get coverage in all the other national newspapers afterwards. And there's many different possible angles to this. There's the human health angle, the animal cruelty, the disease. So you want to tailor your press release for what you think that journalist is really going to be into. So for example, we did our one on consumer media. We focused on the health aspects of the increase in meat. And then of course we did the trade media, and it's much more about the supermarkets and the impact on chickens and everything else. You can also consider a generic press release and include a more targeted facts and detail in the pitch. She also just reiterated, like, rather than focusing on one supermarket, we led with a headline that it's just prevalent in all supermarkets, trying to make it a discussed factor for, you know, anyone buying chicken, not just, oh, well, I don't shop at that supermarket, so it doesn't affect me. But again, you may want to adapt that depending on what works for your campaign if you're targeting a particular supermarket at the time. And this story came out in Closer magazine, which is like a celeb and gossip magazine, but does some real life stories. So again, it resonates across a wide range of media. It really impacts consumers. So it's a really good way to get a message out in places that we don't always get to put our chicken stories. So in conclusion, white striping is super prevalent, but it's best to run a test run just to make sure that the supermarkets you're going to will have the chicken breast that you need in the way that you need. So ideally refrigerated and easy to see packages. You want to score based on the packages, not based on the muscle, and score for the highest affected one in the pack. If you can do higher welfare, do. It's helpful because you really can show, if you buy higher welfare, you know that it's going to be a healthier chicken breast. Train those volunteers and staff on how to take the photos, make sure they're aware of what chicken breast is, and make sure if you want to get the label, they know how to get the label. And also, I forgot to mention that when they're going through the packs, it's not a case of picking the ones with white striping. You really do need to ensure they take a photo of every pack they pick up. So it's literally pick the pack up, photo, pick the pack, photo, not for them to select, because we do really want this to be a true investigation. And so you really need to make sure that you're not falsifying any of the facts. Try and get as many samples as possible. So we're talking hundreds, not tens. Make sure you have enough time to score. It does take a long time. It took like weeks, we're talking here. So, you know, give yourself a good amount of time from collecting the data to scoring. And it's a consumer grabbing story, so make the most of press. It really has a lot of different angles, and you can really get the message on chicken welfare out to new audiences with this message. And that's it from me. So thank you so much. I look forward to taking your questions.
Hi, and we're back. So you've seen the talk, and now we can move on to a short Q&A session. So if you have any questions for Vicky, please post them in the live questions section in the inventory app. And after the Q&A session, Vicky is staying with us for a networking session on Zoom. The link will also be copied in the chat section. So we have one question for Vicky from Denise. Did you publish the report, and where can it be found?
Yes, we published the report. You can go to the humaneleague.uk/article/white-striping, and you will find an article, and at the bottom of that there's a link to download the full report.
Yes, I will try to copy the link and post it to the chat section. Yes. There's a link to the site which Vicky mentioned in the group chat. There's another question and comment. Very inspiring and disturbing at the same time. Maybe I didn't catch it enough. How is eating meat affected by this disease? Okay, one moment. Okay, how does eating meat affected by the disease affect people's health? This is the argument that most often convinces people to change.
That's right. It doesn't necessarily affect their health like long term, but what it does is it reduces the quality of the meat. A lot of people think that chicken is the highest protein meat they can have, but now with this change of breed, it's increasingly fatty, and in doing so, it is not as nutritionally as good as they believed it was before, and it also has become drier. So when people cook with it, it doesn't hold the moisture as much, doesn't hold texture as well, and doesn't hold kind of sauces as well. So it's affecting meat quality in that sense, and that was what was really popular with consumer-based articles, so hence the Daily Mail really liking it and other places, because as a consumer element where people don't realize the quality is greatly reduced now compared to how it would be if it was a different breed of chicken.
Thank you. Another question from Gabrielle. Thank you for your presentation, super informative. And the question is, most shops have a rule against taking photos inside. Did your volunteers run into problems with staff of the shops?
Honestly, no. We did this pre-COVID and post, like the lockdown of COVID, so things were very different at the time between the two, and we really didn't have any problems. You can be fairly quick in just picking up a packet, taking a picture, pick up a packet, take a picture, pick up a packet, take a picture. Like, you don't need to be there for very long. And when I did it, because I also collected quite a lot of data, you just move out the way if a shopper comes, and then you go back, and you move out the way, and you go back. And there was only one volunteer that got asked what they were doing, and they explained they were taking photos for this article. They were very upfront, and they said, well, I'm afraid we're going to have to ask you to leave, and so they just had to leave, and that was fine. But there was one person out of like maybe, I guess we had about 25 people collecting data. So, and as I said, like, things were quite different with the second lot of data that we tried to collect, where it was COVID, so there was only so many people allowed in the shop at the time. We all had to wear gloves. We all wore gloves and masks and everything to adhere to the policies.
Okay, thank you. And did you get any reactions or statements from the producers as a follow-up?
Quite a few of our producers have already committed to following through with the Better Chicken commitment, so we didn't get that kind of response, but I know that our corporate relations team got a good response when they reached out to the supermarkets to talk about it. It's something they bring up when they go to meetings. It's certainly something that put the Better Chicken commitment even more on their radar. So that was particularly useful, and they used that in other meetings, and I know that other groups have been using that report for their corporate relations meetings and found that very helpful. So it definitely is a good talking point when meeting with different companies.
Cool, thanks. And what would you recommend for talking to journalists for the very first time in other countries about this topic to grab the interest of the journalists, of the media?
So Hannah, who's our head of communications, I'm going to try and zone into what she would say to this answer, because this is very much her field. But I know that she said before in the past that you really want to hone in on what that particular journalist would be interested in. So if you know a journalist likes to talk about welfare, then you would very much hook in on, like, we need to change the breed, they suffer so much, and not only do they suffer, but the meat quality is affected. But if you've got a consumer-based journalist that cares about consumer things, then you very much want to go for the kind of disgust factor that you can elicit from people. Like, for instance, chicken is now, much more fatty, for instance, than it used to be. The figure 85% of all chicken analysed was suffering from this disease. Like, the word disease alone it elicits that kind of response, so it makes people wonder what they're eating. You really want to just hone in on what you know those journalists are particularly interested in, and try and get a grabbing title that will give them the information they want. Some good quotes in there as well. If you can get some quotes in there, then they'll probably use those too. I know in the US, they're about to release the report, and the reason they haven't released it to date is they have a really big potential, it's always potential until it's out there with the media, of course, interview lined up that will be kind of nationwide if it goes through. So you can really, and this is a television program as well, so you can really go out to lots of different forms of media as well, and it's likely to form a good story.
Okay, we have some time for more questions. In the US, where 99% of chicken had it, did the public care as much just because it's the norm?
So, like I said, we haven't released it. We were going to release. When I recorded that that presentation, it was due to be released the week before. So I thought it's fine to talk about. You know, we're going to be able to answer all those kind of questions. But because we've got this potential media partnership to release it, we haven't released it in the US yet. So I can't say what people will say. But the fact that we've got this potential big media hit would make me think that they think people are going to really care. And actually, because it's the norm, that's how horrifying it is. You know, we've got a lot of response with 85%, but 99% is incredible, really.
Okay. What next steps are you planning? Do you use this argument with producers? You already answered it to a certain extent, I guess. But what about the next steps?
Yes, we're always looking to try and be as innovative as possible with how we can get the Better Chicken Commitment work out there. We are currently considering taking DEFRA, who is Department of Environment and Farming Rural Affairs, in our government to court, to the Supreme Court, to say that they are actually breaking the law in our eyes. So there is a piece of legislation in Europe, and it goes through to the UK. And that piece of legislation states that based on genotype and phenotype, no animal should suffer or should have any problems. And of course, we know the broiler chicken suffers specifically because of its genotype and phenotype. So we believe that this is a very strong case for saying, well, we've got evidence. There's been a number of reports recently from Guelph, from University of Bristol, with the RSPCA report, Norwegian Life Sciences report. They've done 3 different separate studies, all showing that these fast-growing breeds are really detrimental to the health and welfare of these birds. So we believe we have a good case. We have to go through the Supreme Court, and we're already like 18 months in, and we're still trying to work out if we can get it through. But if we can, then we will do that. We're always trying to find different angles to talk about breed. And I know the team have a few other things in the pipeline that will be coming out soon to really try and get the general public to understand just how bad this is.
Okay, we have 3 more minutes. So there's one interesting question. Was your main goal to get producers to switch to a slower growing chicken breed, or to get consumers to eat less or better chicken? What was the main goal?
So our main goal is to get companies committed to the Better Chicken Commitment. We wanted to use this as the sort of springboard for the start of our push against retailers that they need to commit to the Better Chicken Commitment. So as an organisation, the Humane League advocates for people to reduce and eliminate meat from their diet, but we also take this pragmatic approach with our corporate outreach work, which is that we need to eliminate the worst forms of suffering. And right now we know that, for instance, the breed is one of those things that causes so much suffering to the birds, as well as the high stocking densities, where these birds they have very little space for most of their lives, and also to improve the slaughter conditions and other things that we provide with this Better Chicken Commitment will massively reduce the level of suffering they have. But absolutely, as an organisation, when we talk to the general public about this, it is not just about signing up to the Better Chicken Commitment, but getting people to realise they need to leave animals off their plate as well.
Okay, thank you. I think we will be wrapping up the Q&A, and there is a link to the networking session on the group chat. So whoever is interested, see you there in like 3 minutes, maybe.
Thanks. Yeah,
thanks for watching, and enjoy your care experience.